It's 3 points. Here to weigh in, Ian Pryor, Communications Director for American Crossroads, and Ben Wickler is the Washington Director for MoveOn.org. Gentlemen, it is nice to have you both here with us. No question, it has been a good couple of weeks for Donald Trump. The poll numbers certainly indicate that. The question for you, Ian, does this comment about Hillary Clinton and her Secret Service detail change things significantly? Is this a major moment or a blip?
Well, I mean, we'll see, right? He made it on a Friday. You have the weekend to kind of let things lie. If we end up talking about this, or we end up talking about the birther issue for the next 5 days or 6 days, yeah, it's going to be a problem. I think Mitch McConnell said it best a couple of months ago. Donald Trump needs to be a little more boring, because you see what happens when he's a little more boring. For the past 2 weeks, he's been pretty boring. And Hillary Clinton has been the one with the focus on her. First, you had the health scare and her campaign's less than transparent reaction to it. And you also had her saying essentially 25% of likely voters are deplorable. When Hillary Clinton makes news, her poll numbers go down. When Donald Trump makes news, his poll numbers go down. So really, it's who's not going to lose the election by stepping in it. That's the question.
Interesting analysis. You agree?
You know, Donald Trump gets bored when he's boring. And we've seen this happen again and again. If he doesn't make news, outrage people, cause division.
Well, he even said that about himself. He said, if I act presidential, it's going to be boring. Something along those lines. On the other hand, Kellyanne Conway has been able to control him. He's been incredibly disciplined vis-a-vis his normal self over the past 2 weeks, and to Ian's point, it's been working.
If you look across the year, there have been 2-week periods where he's managed not to horribly offend or threaten like large groups of people or his opponent. That's happened a few times. And then it all falls apart again. He just cannot control himself. He doesn't have the temperament that could, fit into the box that a candidate is supposed to be in to not freak out the country that's supposed to elect him.
Well, what I think is amazing is for the past 5 months, Hillary Clinton has been on the airwaves spending millions of dollars on TV going after Donald Trump, which has gone largely unanswered. Yet here we are 7 weeks before the election, and it's tied, which tells me that, the candidate that runs the best campaign, that's not who's going to win. It's the candidate who has the worst 2 weeks leading up to the election on the news. That's the candidate that's going to lose, and the other candidate's going to end up walking into the White House.
You think about that interesting. It could just come down really to the last 2 weeks, to what happens on Twitter in the last 7 days before this election could decide things. You mentioned TV ads, something that Donald Trump really hasn't done a lot of. Hillary Clinton has done more of, and hit back this morning as it related to Trump on the birther issue.
You don't still question that he was born in the United States, do you?
I have no idea.
Do you accept that President Obama was born in the United States, is not Muslim?
I really don't know.
He released his birth certificate.
If you believe that, that's fine.
All right, so it's great fodder here in Washington to play it back and forth and to say, well, he said this and this date and that date. Does that stuff matter anymore to the American electorate, or has it all just become a giant fog?
So I think right now it's a fog. I think it does come crisply into focus in those last 2 weeks, just as you're saying. And I think what we're going to see in that moment is that it's not just Twitter. That's the moment when all of the organization and planning for Election Day that the campaigns have been doing, or one of the campaigns has been doing for the last year and a half, will actually come to bear fruit. Like, one campaign will know who its voters are, will help them get out to the polls, will make its most powerful closing arguments, will close its case.
The other one, that was a very thinly veiled shot at the fact that Donald Trump does not really have a massive ground game. He doesn't have staff in dozens of states. He doesn't have dozens of field offices. Ian, is that a problem?
Well, I think if you look at the states he has to win, Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania, one thing all those states have in common, top-tier Senate races. And so a lot of money is going to go pouring into those states to get out the vote on those Senate races. That benefit is ultimately going to inure to Donald Trump. So it's going to be an interesting situation where down-ballot races, ground games, are going to help the top of the ticket, where you don't usually see it that way. Usually it's the other way around.
So it may prove Trump's theory that he doesn't have to have this whole infrastructure because somebody else will pay for it.
I like that he's making that bet. There are also Democrats running in those Senate races that are also getting a ton of investment and focus. And the Democratic side, you're going to have...
Not so much anymore in Ohio and Florida.
This race is far from over. I think there's a lot of people who will be fighting their hearts out, volunteers on the ground, knocking on doors on one side of the equation. And we're going to see whether there's a role for the public in this democracy.
Something I think
Twitter.
Both of you guys can agree on. We will see. There we go. All right. Ben, Ian, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Liz?